All right, everybody. Well, thank you very much for being on this call. I really, really appreciate the invite. My name is Billy Brockway. I'm a commander with the Los Angeles Police Department, and I am currently the homeless coordinator for the department for LAPD. And that seems like a very large title, and it is. I'm responsible for the entire city of Los Angeles as far as our policy is concerned, and in engaging with the community and engaging with all the different entities within the city, both city entities and nonprofits, to address the public crisis, obviously, of homeless. So a little bit about myself. I've been on the police department for 27 years, lifelong resident of Los Angeles. I still live in Los Angeles. I have 3 kids, 11, 14, and 17, all went to LA Unified School District. And I can't tell you how proud I am to be a member of the Los Angeles Police Department. I went to college at USC, both undergrad and graduate school. I graduated in 1992 during the riots, and it changed me forever. I was actually a real estate development major, and I worked for Citibank as a mortgage banker for a year. And I knew that I wanted to give back and serve the community the best that I possibly could. My mom was the LA Unified school teacher for 37 years. So I saw firsthand how important it is to engage with the community and to ensure that we all are working collectively to make a safe Los Angeles. So with that, I've been in this position for a few months. I have a substantial background in working in Skid Row and in Central Division, in creating teams that led to our HOPE teams that unfortunately we don't have anymore because of the cuts that we've had within the department. So I know there's been a lot of questions about 4118A and B, so I want to talk about that for a second. So sir, if you could put up the ordinance for me, that'd be great. Okay, so this ordinance, which is obviously going to be available to everybody, was enacted on September 3rd. And we'll give you a little background of how we got to this point. So back on July 29th, 2021, the LA City Council amended 4118. Today, I'm going to talk about 4118A and B. On September 3rd, it became effective. Section 4118A and B both regulate sitting, lying, or sleeping, the person's behavior, or storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property, the person's property, in the following locations. So A, when you think about A, it means ADA. In violation of Americans with Disabilities Act. So if somebody is lying or sleeping on the street or sidewalk, and they're blocking that right away, or they've built a tent or an encampment that is blocking and where we can't get 36 inches past, that would be the first violation, 4118A1. 4118A2 would be the same, sitting, lying, or sleeping, or maintaining your property 10 feet of any operational or usable driveway or loading dock. That's 4118A2. And then 4118A3 is within 5 feet of any operational or utilizing building entrance or exit. The fourth would be within 2 feet of any fire hydrant, fire plug, or any fire department connection. And the last would be in a manner that obstructs or unreasonably interferes with the use of right of way or any activity that the city has issued a permit for. And then B, on any portion of any street or other public right of way open to use of motor vehicles, a bike lane or bike path, or other public rights of way open to the use of the bicycles. So the department's position is very clear. Enforcement is the last resort. We in law enforcement, the LAPD, we want to create an environment that's safe enough for the entities that provide services and housing can build relationships with people experiencing homelessness to ensure those relationships lead to accepting services and or placement into housing. So that is what our goal truly is. 4118A and B, as you can see and you can review, we always want to educate and inform everybody first. And then as we give it to the officer's discretion to utilize their best discretion in what the best manner is to actually give an A citation or a citation. And of course, the last resort would be to make a physical arrest. So with that being said, we normally get voluntary compliance. In some instances where we come about a encampment that is so large and no one takes responsibility for portions of that, we have to utilize what's called the the Homeless Response Center, the Unified Homeless Response Center, which is run by the mayor's office, and that we participate. And we work with sanitation, Department of Transportation, LASA, and of course the mayor's office, and the fire department, and Caltrans, and city services throughout to address some of these larger encampments, so that we can have sanitation take the lead to actually disassemble those locations. So we just started, when I say we, the city, doing comprehensive cleanups. And those comprehensive cleanups are when we actually go out, sanitation does, and marks areas and gives people who are experiencing homelessness in a specific area, sometimes 24 hours, most of the time 72 hours, to let them know that we're coming through to clean an area and provide services and housing, and to ensure that it's safe the best we possibly can. So that started with sanitation. We take an active role with sanitation in some cases to ensure we create that safe environment for the community and for the service workers. If we could go sort to a second slide, the handout that was made by the mayor's office. So this ordinance, it's geared towards the one that you just saw for our LAPD personnel to utilize. The second one, everything that I just said, here it is in one simple, clean document. And at the bottom, it has outreach information for LASA as well as Department of Mental Health with 24-hour numbers. So this form, everybody who's on this call right now is the first to see it. We are going to start utilizing this, handing these out as we continue to educate and inform people who experience homelessness, what 4118A and B is, and ensure we, again, create that safe environment for social workers, outreach workers, LASA, to build those relationships again, as I mentioned earlier, to get people to accept the services and housing and get off the streets. So I can talk for hours on end, but I have a feeling that there may be a lot of questions that people have as far as what 4118A and B is about, what our enforcement angle is, which I think I already mentioned, that it's a last resort, and to really try to answer people's questions that maybe are specific. Because I'll tell you this, engaging in some of the larger encampments, as you mentioned when you did my introduction, sir, can be sometimes dangerous. But again, we want to create that environment that's safe for LASA and sanitation and Department of Transportation to go out there and build these relationships, to build the trust of our people experiencing homelessness, to go into housing, because we don't want people living on the streets at all. And one of the things that I learned in my time in Skid Row and in this position now, and I know a lot of people are going to have a question about it, what can you do to make a difference? What can you do to ensure that we are getting people into services? I can tell you, calling the police department helps. Calling sanitation helps. Working with your council district helps. Calling 311 helps, without a doubt, because we want to document where these locations are so that we can get all the resources coordinated to get out there to do what we need to do best, which is to provide opportunities for individuals to get off the streets and to accept housing and services. But sometimes one of the struggles that we face, and I utilize this a lot, this following statement is, how do I will somebody to want what we want for them? Or how do we will somebody to want what we think they should want for themselves? And that's a very, very difficult question. And I can tell you that I have a family member a brilliant person, a member of Mensa, speaks 3 languages, and he lives on the streets. He has money, he has family, he has resources, but he has mental health disorders, and he self-medicates with illegal narcotics. And we've tried as a family so many times, it's been so frustrating to bring him back into the home, to bring him back into services, and it's just something that he's not accepting. And it's been very, very difficult for our family to process that because we feel like we failed as my personal family. As a city family, I think we all could agree that's how we all feel. What is it that we can do to will this person to want what we want for themselves? And it's a very, very difficult, it's a very difficult job. I wish it was an easy thing for us to do. But in my position, it's to coordinate our resources, to create a safe environment, to ensure that services are provided for people who really, really need them. So, sir, I'll kick it back to you if we want to go ahead and answer any questions, or if you want to read off some of the questions in the chat room, that'd be great. Or
Yeah.
we'll open it up for general questions. I'm here for you, and I have no time limitation. I know we're supposed to be done at 3:45, but I'm here for it because I truly believe that we have to have conversation. We have to have dialogue to be able to address this massive issue that we're facing.
Definitely. I'd recommend that please, in the chat, add your questions so it can be read out here. In the chat, I've also put a file that you can download, the draft of the flyer as well as the notice. So you are the first ones to have access to this. That will be widely shared. I see we have a hand raised by David Rockello. Hello, David.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Freddie, wonderful job today overall. And my dear friend in the police force, thank you for being here and addressing this and starting this dialogue. Once again, we have to, find a good place for our homeless brothers and sisters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And right now, yes, get them out of Skid Row. Get them out of all the dirty, filthy, disgusting places. And I'm suggesting that we give them the public golf courses for a place to camp. Okay? And people need to be able to have a space for camping. Going to, all these wonderful programs, nothing is a negative in my book. I think all these things build, like the homeless motels project, and all these other things. But if we really want to get people off the streets, we need a safe space for people to do drugs and to drink before they come in from the outside and the cold. Okay, it's a matter of meeting people halfway. Now, I saw in Echo Park there was a lot of homeless folks living right next to where there was recreation. But why a golf course, you ask? Because that's our best land. It's our most beautiful land. Let's stop giving people the worst and start giving them our best park area. But stop the golfing, and let's use this for people to make encampments that have to be moved. I don't know, once a month, twice a month, or whatever schedule you want to figure out, so that it's not so easy to be homeless and doing drugs. You're going to be inundated with folks that want to give you social services, and there's no reason that you failed anybody. People aren't ready yet, and we don't have the homes to give them yet. So let's give them a great, area so they can breathe easier and find that space in their mind where they can give up the drugs. I know there's a lot of people that are in the service industries. They're very upset that this is not working. People mess things up. Well, yeah, some people will mess things up. But if you keep moving people around when the grass needs to grow in a different spot, the golf course has fire mitigation because there's a sprinkler system there. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that people understand this is not going to get solved until the rich live next to the poor, and they're going to start to want to give money to build more and better housing for the homeless. So thank you for my opportunity to speak to you, sir.
Roger that. Hey, real quick before we set it, I'm going to turn my video on for 1 second, but I might lose you, so I'm going to shut it right off just so you
Okay.
can see me. I know there's a couple comments in here that I'm not on the video, and I apologize. So I'm going to turn it on. Let's see if I can get this thing working.
Yeah.
That's me. I'm here in the office.
Excellent.
But,
And we don't even have to give them the whole golf course. It could be the back 9. You know,
Roger that.
you could give partial golf course and still have the recreation and you know, and just move people around so that they know when they come into the encampment area, they have to follow certain rules, but they can still do whatever they want. You can monitor them, and better that they do it in a nice atmosphere than, you know, out on the streets that can get pretty messy. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
Roger
so
that.
much.
Thanks, sir. So what I ask everyone, and you specifically, sir, talk to your council districts. Let them know the ideas that you have, because I can tell you this, in the time that I spent in Skid Row, it came down to a conversation that I had with somebody. I was walking a footbeat through Skid Row, and a gentleman walked up to me and he said, "Hey, I want to thank you." And he was literally eating Cheerios, having breakfast, going for a walk. And I said, "For what? I don't know you." And he said, "One of your officers arrested me 3 years ago, and I've been clean and sober since, and I am now in housing." And so I stopped and I turned to him. I said, "What did the officer say? What did he do?" And he said, "Well, he had been arrested for drinking in public, and he was in the bottom of a jail cell, and he woke up and he realized he had hit rock bottom. And when he had hit rock bottom, he walked across the street and he went into a facility, and he's been clean and sober since." And I had said, "So what can I say or do to get to somebody like yourself to that point?" And he said, "It's difficult. I just need options." And I think having this dialogue, having these conversations, I don't believe there's going to be a magic pill. But what I can tell you is giving people opportunities. We have to be able to do that. And again, create that environment for people to accept services and or mental health services, because it is, I see it every day living in LA. I see how exponentially we've gone from 20,000 to 30,000 to 40,000. And it doesn't seem to be lessening, but we have so many services that are coming in to try and make a difference. That the tiny villages seem to be working. The Project Room Key seems to be working. But I'm seeing too many people experience homelessness that are victims of crimes. Those predators that are going after them, the drug dealers, the gang members, which obviously we play a major role in making sure that we address that the best we possibly can. So right back to you, sir, if you want to open it up for another question. I typed my cell phone number. That is my personal cell phone number into the chat. If you feel like you didn't get the questions answered today, call me. I'm a salaried employee, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I appreciate the phone calls.
Okay, I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna read some of the questions out. We got a lot of questions from the attendees here, so I'm gonna start from the top. Can you list the causes of homelessness and the reasons for not getting of the?
So that's a great question. I was in my way to Skid Row one day and I saw some graffiti up on a wall. And when I got back to my station, I actually hand wrote it out on my dry erase board. And I morphed it into how I interpreted that graffiti into what we do in law enforcement. So that's a very, very complicated question. So this graffiti said, and what I interpret it is, in law enforcement, we treat the symptoms of broken homes, mental health issues, domestic violence, gang violence, substance abuse, mental health concerns. Symptoms, reactionary. Now in law enforcement and the city, we're trying to understand the causes. How did somebody get on the streets? No one's born 24 years old with bipolar disorder. No one's born 28 years old addicted to narcotics. No one. So everybody comes from somewhere. And in my experience in working with people experience homelessness, interviewing people that are still homeless or people that have, like that gentleman that were able to get off the streets, It comes down to mental health concerns, comes down to substance abuse, it comes down to domestic violence, broken homes, and a lot of times just really, really bad luck and circumstances that were out of their control. And those are the people that we want to identify to ensure that we get them the services they deserve, because each one of those situations is complicated in itself. And as I used my cousin's example, loving family, brilliant mind, but mental health concerns. And it goes back to, how do I will my cousin to want what he should want for himself or what I would want for him? And to this day, he's still living on the streets, to the point where our family kept reaching out, trying to help, and he moved. He's now homeless in Seattle. So I wish it was a simple solution for us, but it is. There's a lot of passionate people that are working on this, including council districts, board of supervisors, universities, concerned residents. So it's a marathon. It's definitely a marathon. Back to you, sir, for another question.
Thank you. Okay, we have another one. Will the ADA distance requirements on the sidewalks start being enforced everywhere, or when will it be enforced?
So it is being enforced. So with this came, like I said, it came on September 3rd. So my office has been providing training to our LAPD personnel. And as you saw the ordinance and our notice that went out, we want to educate and inform everybody first. But what we are really seeing is in those large encampments that are blocking the full sidewalk, in law enforcement, I can't go out there with a drill and a hammer and disassemble some of these structures, literally structures that have been built. So what my personnel are doing, LAPD personnel, are working with sanitation, Department of Transportation, the mayor's office, and LASA to ensure we get the people out there that are able to address this. So I could take you down to Maple Street in downtown right now. The entire block sidewalk is from east to west is blocked, and there are structures up. I mean, literally structures that are lagged into the ground, 2x4s framed with a roof, and it's a good half a block long, and there is not one person living in there. So I can't, in uniform, go and start disassembling that. But what we can do is take pictures of that, send it to sanitation, and in some cases we have to bring in building and safety, and then sanitation, who's responsible for cleaning the streets, will go out there, prioritize that, and start to take care of that and open up that 36 inches. But yes, we are training our personnel. We are doing enforcement of the ADA issues, and we are seeing some substantial reduction in the number of encampments in some locations. But it's coordinating our efforts with Department of Sanitation, with LASA, with Department of Mental Health, to ensure that we take that services approach, and then we educate and inform everybody. But yes, it is, and we're just continue to train our personnel on exactly what that ordinance means, what the order means, and how to carry it out.
Perfect. I have another question. What changes is LAPD taking to comply with Judge Carter's judgment and the remand demanded by the 3-judge appeal group?
So that last week, there was another decision that was made right before I went on this call. I was on the phone with Guido O'Neill, who's our city attorney, as we interpret what that means. I'm not an attorney. So we are working very closely with the city attorney's office to ensure how we comply with the court case that was appealed and sounds like it's going to be thrown out. And that's Judge Carter's decisions. So we have a city attorney that's assigned to me, and we work very closely with the city attorney to ensure that the steps that we take as a result of the court's decisions, that we comply. So we will comply. We are complying. But again, I believe that just happened on Thursday. So we're definitely meeting on Monday to discuss it further to make sure that we're complying. Great question.
All right, we have another one. At what point are the rights of the public considered, and are parks and recreation areas returned to the public?
Well, so Rec and Parks, we work very closely with Rec and Parks. My kids play in the park in Griffith Park right by where I live. There is an ordinance 6344. You're not allowed to camp, spend the night in parks. So rec and parks, the rangers, they do that portion of education and enforcement. The rights of the public, that's me. That's everybody who's on this call. And I share in everyone's frustration over the last 18 months with COVID and moratoriums on certain things. But what I would, again, stress that this is great, this conversation. The number of organizations that are part of this call today shows that we all care and that we want to make a difference. So step one is talking to me. Step two is making sure that you have my cell phone number to call. And then we have to identify those locations to ensure that we get the proper services out to the people who are out on the streets, to try and get them to accept services, try to get them into housing, and then again, as a last resort, enforcement. So there's, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of passionate people that are working on this. We just need to bring everybody together and create that safe environment. But I hear what you're saying, and we're doing the best we possibly can as we get out of COVID. So I thank you for the question.
Perfect. I have another question. We have a lot of questions here from the attendees here. Some folks choose to live in their vehicles. More freedom to do as they please. Everybody's got bathroom issues. We fellow residents have to walk by the issue. What can we do to deal with that?
Great question. So 8502 LAMC doesn't exist, grandfathered out, sunsetted out, I should say. And there's a moratorium that was placed by our elected officials that if we believe Department of Transportation is the lead on something like that, if it is believed that somebody is living in a vehicle, then we cannot impound that vehicle. It's a great question for Department of Transportation, but there is a moratorium on that. So again, I would reach out to your council districts, voice your concerns, because we do have a large number of people that are living in their RVs that obviously aren't moving, or living in their vehicles that aren't moving, and they're not utilizing those safe zones to be able to drive to park at night, and they're parking everywhere. So we in law enforcement, we unfortunately right now cannot impound those vehicles. And we rely on Department of Transportation to address that. And then again, with the direction that we received from the council district, the mayor's office, work collaboratively to figure out what we can and can't do to, again, get the services out to the community, people experiencing homelessness, and get them off the streets. Because yes, I see the RVs that are collapsing. I see cars where people are living in them, and I see the waste that comes out of that. And that's why we did have a moratorium on these cleanups by sanitation. That doesn't exist anymore. So sanitation is out there more than they've ever been. They are tasked immensely with different locations that they need to go to. And I know they're doing the best they possibly can. But again, I'd kick that question more than anything for clarification to sanitation. And what I would ask is call me. I can put you into contact with sanitation, and we can have a conference call to discuss the locations that you're specifically talking about, so we can focus our resources to address the best we can. But again, thank you so much for your question.
Wonderful. The next question we have from the attendee is it humane or responsible to allow people who have mental health and drug abuse issues to exist on our streets? Wouldn't mandating those who are unwell into treatment centers that could be built on city and county lands, as we are attempting with COVID and other diseases, should we not contain the issue? Also, affordable housing can be built on city and county lands.
So as far as the law enforcement portion of that question that I can answer, yeah, if you're using narcotics illegally on the street, then we will enforce the best we can. If somebody's dealing narcotics, we'll do the best we possibly can to identify that person and bring them to justice and ensure they're not preying on people. As far as the housing is concerned, that's obviously a broader question for somebody above me. And it's not 100%, even though it ends up being a law enforcement question or issue. I can only tell you, we need to work with our elected officials to point people in the right direction on what we believe will work and how to address that the best we can. Now, speaking of the district attorney's office and the city attorney's office, let's say we do arrest somebody for possession of narcotics or under the influence, there are avenues for individuals through the DA's office and the city attorney's office to go into rehab. But yeah, I agree with you. Somebody who's addicted to narcotics, like my cousin, the last thing I want to ever do is take somebody's freedom. And I know the Department of Mental Health is working extremely hard to address this, to identify those individuals and get them into the services they need for mental health or substance abuse. And that's why when you see the flyer that the mayor's office is pushing out, that we'll be handing out as well, has phone numbers in there for mental health and substance abuse. But it goes back to my situation, the story that I told. Again, that gentleman walking up to me saying he had to make the decision for himself. And the consequence of going to jail for it didn't matter to him until he made the decision himself.
Perfect. Another question we have. Why doesn't the city close a lane of traffic or a parking lane in order to provide ADA accessible pathways without destroying the shelters of the public experiencing homelessness?
Again, that's a really a question for an elected official, but I will tell you this. On my way here today, I'm downtown in my office. The sidewalks are 100% taken over, and I've had to see people walk into the streets to get around them. And some of those streets are blocked off because they're for bike lanes. But a sidewalk is intended for walking. The street is intended for riding a bike or driving. I believe that would be a little bit too dangerous to go ahead and take over a lane. But if we can get that voluntary compliance to ensure that we have the 36 inches, that would go a lot farther than blocking off an entire lane. But thank you for your question.
We have another one. Why do you think the city has not addressed the bike theft and bike shop issues that exist in homeless encampments?
So we have, and we do, but I'll tell you that the biggest thing that we see, and when I was in Skid Row and when I was working in Southwest and I was working Southeast and I was working 77th and the Valley in Van Nuys as a command officer, the vast majority of people don't register their bikes. They don't memorialize those serial numbers. So even though we walk up and think that this is a stolen bike, somebody either decides, I'm not going to make a report because I'm never going to get my bike back, or they don't know what their serial number was or is. So when I was in Central, we started a program where we were actually etching bikes for people voluntarily to make sure that we were able to get bikes back if they were stolen. A lot of times we'll go up to somebody who's working on bikes and we'll run serial numbers off those bikes and none of them are reported stolen. So at that point, I hate to say it, and this is a bad analogy, but we're handcuffed. But we definitely do that. We definitely are trying to educate the community to ensure that they register their bikes and memorialize their bikes, and every piece of that bike was something that can determine it's theirs. So a grinder etching it is so important. But thank you for your question.
Perfect. We have about 10 minutes left. In the chat, I've provided the bottom information that's being screen shared onto the chat. So you can click on the link, or you can jot down the mental health helpline 24/7 or the substance abuse helpline that's 24/7. I do not see any additional questions in the chat. Someone wrote, regarding the bike chop shops, why not do what Long Beach has done and make these criminals get a business license to operate a business on public property?
I hate to say it, that's the first I've heard of that, and I'm writing that down right now. And I will definitely look into that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. How about this? In order to wrap around, a member of the public is asking if you have worked with a gentleman who calls himself the General on Skid Row.
Yes, I have. There's two generals in Skid Row. There's General Jeff and there's General Dogon. I know both of them very well. We actually had a conference call Zoom meeting with General Jeff on September 7th with the Skid Row community to talk about 4118 A and B, which we're talking about today. General Dogon was on that call, and we are going to have a subsequent follow-up call in the next couple of weeks to address concerns, if any. We are also doing Zoom calls with the businesses and the community in Skid Row. And then we are always available at request to have Zoom calls or meet in person to discuss 4118 A and B, and obviously the homeless crisis. It's fair to say it is a crisis, and not only to listen, but to hear and get some suggestions that will help out. I mean, the Long Beach question about getting business permits, it's brilliant. Yeah, so I think it's really, really critical for us to keep the dialogue going, but know that we're doing what we can, the best we can, to address the homeless crisis, going after the predators, the narcotics dealers, the gang members, the thieves, to create that environment again, to bring people to justice, but to provide an opportunity for the different organizations to feel safe, to address concerns, and to provide services the best we possibly can.
Wonderful. I don't see any additional questions. If not, please look at the chat. I have added the link to the networking lounge if you want to attend, or link to the Neighborhood Congress LA. The file has been sent. A draft of the flyer has been sent to everyone. If not, it will be part of the Congress as an attachment that can be downloaded later. And I'd like to give a virtual round of applause to LAPD Commander Billy Brockway. Thank you for sharing your time and your information and knowledge in this session. Again, I have put into the chat this information. I just copy and pasted Billy's information and his cell phone number that he's freely given. The Zoom room will close promptly at 3:45 p.m., but attendees are welcome to move over to the networking lounge to continue conversing. This will be marking the end of the 2021 LA Congress of Neighborhoods. Keep an eye out for an event survey in your emails, and be sure to follow the Congress of Neighborhoods on social media to be alerted when recordings of the other sessions are uploaded for viewing. Content and links to the social media channels can be found at neighborhoodcongress.la. Thank you again for giving your time and energy today, and we will see you next year. I'll put in the chat again the link to go to the networking lounge and or other sessions that are currently wrapping up. Thank you again, Commander Billy Brockway.
No, thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's great to see so many people on the call because we all care. Thank you.